For its creator, Olivier Assayas, this Irma Vep is a ruthlessly self-loathing enterprise. Assayas could play the hip, irreverent young film critic in his 1996 cult classic of the same name, using the story of a French New Wave fossil reviving Louis Feuillade's silent crime serial to comment on the sorry state of French cinema and exalt the relative creative health of the Hong Kong scene, as represented by the glamorous Maggie Cheung. However, Assayas recognizes that by converting his film into an 8-episode TV miniseries, he is guilty of feeding the content mill with a revival of a revival, and that the indulgent director of the series within the series is the worst form of himself. He continues to provide critical criticism, but he can no longer claim to be an outsider. As Mira and Zoe rush off in a moped to see a Royal Trucks show, but are sidetracked by giving Gottfried a much-needed supply of crack, a meta-conversation breaks out at a house party near the beginning of this riotous third episode. Regina makes the ludicrous claim that the pioneers of early silent movies were the original content creators while sitting in the backyard. They had to develop stuff to keep people hooked, she continues, explaining that they'd invented this miraculous projection device. But it's Zoe, the stern, no-nonsense veteran, who offers the most pessimistic evaluation of the contemporary TV streaming landscape. They aren't long films. They're happy. Algorithm-driven industrial entertainment. Sally's critically praised new program was cancelled by a Netflix-like institution because the algorithm believed it wasn't hitting the correct taste clusters, as we saw on an episode of Barry this season. It's a small mercy for the creators of Less Vampires and the new Irma Vep that they won't have to worry about their project being renewed based on such mysterious metrics, but the entire conversation is Assayas' humble admission that he's now part of the content mill as well, no matter how absurdly niche and still extremely cool a serialized adaptation of Irma Vep happens to be. When Edmund says that extending content is the polar opposite of art, Assayas is a tad self-involved. The self-loathing doesn't stop there either. After directing Cheung in Irma Vep, Assayas famously married her, and the couple divorced after only a few years, though the parting was amicable enough that Assayas directed her again in his 2004 drug rehab movie Clean. As a sequence where Rene confesses to his therapist about having already done Irma Vep as a low-budget independent film a long time ago and hiring an actress named Jade Lee in the role, Assayas barely hides the reference to Cheung. Rene's laments about his own brief marriage to Jade Lee sound extremely autobiographical. "I was completely in love with her, and then it just faded." The footage we see of Jade Lee wandering around the rooftops of Paris in her catsuit is lifted directly from the '96 Irma Vep, and Rene's laments about his own brief marriage to Jade sound extremely autobiographical. "I was completely in love with her, and then it just faded. It was over one day. She was the one who brought it to a close. The show must go on in the meanwhile." The glimpses we receive of the making of Less Vampires add to the ongoing disaster, and Mira finally gets a taste of Rene's annoyance. It's entirely her fault. She arrives at the hotel after being out all night at the party to find production waiting to accompany her on set. As a result, as Rene launches into his typical befuddling instructions regarding the day's heinous plot, he notices Mira's focus sliding away from the task at hand. When opposed to Gottfried, who arrives on set after a crack and liquor binge by throwing up 2 more times before stumbling into his trailer, she's a paragon of professionalism. For him, it's all part of the process. He always appears to hit his mark when the camera is rolling, playing the bad villain of the plot with the required dramatic elan. For as long as anyone can remember, he's been a high-functioning junkie. When Dead Man's Escape departs its own hall of mirrors and delves into Mira's messed-up love life, which may be a bigger reason she's in Paris than any nobler artistic ambition, it becomes even more engrossing. She pays a visit to Eamon, her ex-boyfriend, who is in town for a big-budget sci-fi film that is effectively Blade Runner without all of the qualities that make Blade Runner so fantastic. Audiences find Rain gloomy, replicants aren't recognized, and I believe they struggled with the concept of neo-noir, says Eamon of the market study. Back in Eamon's trailer, the two reminisce about their traumatic romantic history, how she abruptly left him for Laurie, how he'll be a father despite telling her he never wanted children, and how they fucked up and can't find their way back. Assayas has always been observant about human relationships and enabling them to exist in a zone where both partners are flawed and make awful mistakes, among his many strengths as a filmmaker. This scene between Mira and Eamon is full of melancholy, as well as a lingering attraction that neither of them can act on. Mira is still reeling, while Eamon begins to figure out what he wants, as evidenced by his new relationship and imminent fatherhood. She has no idea how she feels. She has no idea who she is drawn to. She has no idea what the next step ahead will be.